a few times. I'm actually nervous this time. Sometimes I'm not too bad. But although I don't mind talking about myself at times, and that's mostly to enhance an understanding for other people. I guess being here to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my journey and how I came to be here. And I'll try and keep it short, but I have asked the Lord to embellish where He needs to. So trust what I say, just might not be from me. So, as Matt said, I'm Neene Gardner, and I have recently been appointed as Executive Pastor. What that means is I will be heading the business role of the church, because we've had a vision, and that is to move forward and grow, and to grow with God's leadership first and foremost, and to be an amazing outreach to our community, and to be an amazing facilitator for other people, other Christians that may need comfort and help and guidance. Our vision is to become an umbrella, a large entity that has many different facets. And thank you, God, I get to start at the beginning rather than be put in the hot mix of that already being a process. Okay, give me a moment. I guess over the last maybe 12 months, I've been part of the leadership team here for about 18 months, and I've been full-time as an active member of the church for about 2 years. And prior to that, I would have loved to be here more often, but we had an accommodation business, and that, of course, Sundays was usually pack-up day and cleaning and doing all sorts of things. But God did provide a home group for us on Wednesday night. So although I haven't been into the church long, I promised God once we sold our business that I would be as faithful as I could to the church, because I knew that that's where He wanted of me. And I was so hungry for that, because I had such limited access to the goodness of God through the collective worship and togetherness of the church. And although I'm not always comfortable in a lot of people in that setting, I've trusted God with my discomfort to get me through those times where I feel a bit overwhelmed. And that's just a natural part of my personality. So I tell you that now so you understand that I'm not a vivacious, always feeling comfortable in the midst of a lot of people. But here I am. So as the leadership team spoke about this role and the needs of that role, I used to be part of that discussion, and I used to wonder when that position would start and who that person would be. And not for a moment, let me tell you, did I ever think that would be me. But, along the last 2 years, once I finished our work at Coastback, the accommodation facility, I only got 6 weeks rest, which I thought would be 6 months, but God opened another door and I was offered a job at Bright Laundry in the managerial role there. And it was a really tough job. It was a job that challenged me with people, complexities there, and of course a huge learning curve with new computer programs and different things. And there were times I wanted to ditch that job because of complex human interactions, which it wasn't that I felt I couldn't cope with that, I just didn't want to cope with that. So I would say to God, can I finish up soon? This is uncomfortable, I'm struggling here. And He would whisper in my mind each time, you are in training. So I embraced that, and I probably asked 2 more times, and in the end I said, I get it, I'm in training, so I'll just stick with it until you say no more. And I actually resigned from that job just before Christmas because I felt God asked me to. Wasn't anything to do with this job. I actually had not had an interview or anything here at that stage. So then let's get us back to last year, and early September I started to get this word leadership team coming through my mind, and I sort of didn't recognise it till the second week. and it started to ramp up. It was louder, it was stronger, it was more often, and I started to say, hey God, what is this? What are you saying to me here? Surely not. Surely not that I will be executive pastor. And so that became a prayer point during that week. And then on the 13th of September, early in the morning, I was working at Bright Laundry at the time, I got an overwhelming blanket sense. Can't explain. Sometimes those of you that have had that from the Lord, you will know. And it was strongly, you are going to be, I've chosen you to be executive pastor. So I sort of go, oh man, right. And I prayed into that, and I had that confirmed by another person that day, that a lead in to say. So I took hold of it, I wrestled with it, I argued with the Lord that he'd chosen the wrong person, just as Moses did, about leading the Israelites out of Egypt. And I've only recently read that, and it so resonated with me, because I go, that is so me. No, wrong person, what are you thinking? However, across a few months, as I prayed into it, as I started to think about putting in an application, the job hadn't been opened yet, but I had voiced my what had happened to me to somebody who kept me in the loop then of what was happening, and leadership team was still talking about the position. So to move on over that time, I had two friends, very close, very trustworthy Christians, who had spoken to me in the middle of another conversation, said, hey, I reckon you're going to be a pastor. Gee, where did that come from? So they knew nothing, and I didn't say at that point, well, actually, this is what's been stirring. I said nothing, but I held what they said, because I felt like God was just building me, showing me, you are the one. And then as I questioned him, he would start to say things like, trust me. It's not my own ability, trust me. And the reason I'm telling you all this is I want you to understand God's greatness, his overarching insight into who we are as Christians, as we hear from him and obediently bow to him. So I put my application in, I prayed over all of that, I prayed the whole way, I never let go. It's like God's hand came out of the clouds and I held on for dear life. And I just had to breathe through and not think and trust tonight. Whenever I would get nervous or anxious, I would say, no, be quiet, away from me, God has my back. So as my interview came along, and that was slightly confronting, because I got a hug from all of my interviewers, and I have never experienced anything like that, but the love, the acceptance of who I was in that time was very, very reassuring. So of course I was accepted and commissioned as the new executive pastor of this church. This role, from my eyes and what I believe is God's eyes, and probably our team as well, isn't just a business role. It is definitely a spiritual role. I am a very deeply godly spiritual person, and he is my go-to in absolutely everything. If I'm struggling with a person, I don't try and wrestle in my own strength. I go to God and say, what are you doing in my heart here? What is this? Where am I faltering? And where are they faltering, and how can we come together? And how can you grow me? So that's who I am. So I would like to now just quickly share the vision I had years ago as I went through the journey at Casback, and God took me through the fire. Let me tell you, I've been through a bit. It's like he took me into the desert and stripped me of a lot of things. So I didn't have regular contact with friends that had been left in Geelong when we moved up here, and he didn't create new friendships, but what he did create is a very deep need in me to reach for God, and he showed and taught me how to trust him, how to reach for him, how to put him first in anything rather than to be reaching for people to fill that gap. And although the body is important to each other, there's no question that we are all important elements to build each other up. But for that time, God kept me just with him. And of course, my husband and family were in the mix of all of that. So, but the stirrings I had when I was at my lowest, I used to cry to the Lord and say, God, I feel you've got something for me. I feel there's something bigger. There's something bigger than who I am that's coming. And praying into that used to keep me pushing forward, because I can tell you there were times I just wanted to give up. And there were visions I had of being on a not a stage, on a altar stage, and it wasn't necessarily being a pastor like Matt, being a Bible teacher and that. So I'm still not sure of that vision, but I feel there might be evangelistic qualities in me, because I love telling people about the faithfulness of God. So my vision for this church is simply not to see the church stay as it is, where we come to church, we sit on Sunday, we go home, and we do things for the Lord during the week. But I feel this stirring, this simmering of something mighty, this powerful fire, and it bubbles in my spirit, and I can't wait for God to release it. But it's a collective thing. It's not just for me, but God will use me to inspire you. And once upon a time I would have thought that was an arrogant thing to say, but I know he has chosen me to do that. And I don't know how, but today is the start, to give you a picture. So I will finish with this thought, or this promise, and this call to each one of you to not just play church, to not just be Christians, but to reach for the hand, to envision the beautiful big hand that comes out of the clouds and says, I've chosen you, I've chosen you, I've chosen you, I've chosen you. Everybody here has a part to play. You mightn't all get up here, but there'll be people that cross your path daily that God can use. And all we have to do is say, God, who can I speak to today? And it might just be a gentle word. It might be something so simple but just touches someone in a way that gains trust in you. They might ask what church you go to, or what gives you that sense of who you are. There's something different about you, but we need to be ready to answer the questions, or to just feed into people's lives. So I see that as part of our church, and my prayer is, one of the visions I got, and I feel it is for me, and wildly so, because this wasn't me at the time, but I feel God is going to I will walk along streets in time, that he will show me somebody, and that I will walk up to them and give them a word for their life. And that might simply be, hey, there's a God in heaven that loves you, and he's chosen me to tell you this today. God bless you. Is there anything I can pray for you right now? And to trust God when he chooses those people for me. And as I trust him in each gentle step, I will know without question that it is God's voice, and that he's chosen the right person for that day. So if that's something he's given me, I encourage you all to ask him, what is it, God, you can use me for? How can I bless somebody today? It's as simple as that. And as we step in obedience, he will grow that muscle. So that's the vision. I don't believe we will be sitting here quietly. I believe this church will end up praising God, hands raised, because that's biblical. Hands raised, on our knees, however God leads us to worship, that's where he's taking us. That we will see miracles, we will be praying for people for healing, we will be delivering. There are demons that people are consumed by, demons that need help. I believe they'll be coming in the doors, and we will be there for them. And that God has sifted this church, and he has set up a beautiful foundation of believers to begin to lift us and others up as they come through those doors. So we don't believe as a church we will be in this building forever. We believe that it will grow And whatever that looks like at the moment, we don't know, but be encouraged that that is where we're going. And I'll just finish and say, please don't miss it. It doesn't matter how old we are, it doesn't matter how young we are. The time is now, and God is bringing revival. Breathe it in, breathe the fire, feel it and claim it for your own lives. In
Amen.
Jesus' name.
Yeah, well done.